Hello, this is New Wave of British Heavy Metal.com. Today is the 25th of October 2020, and here we're going to revisit a post I put on the website on the 13th of July last year, 2019, which looked at Money's soul album entitled First Investment. Before we get into that, the usual favour, if I may ask, and that if you would please consider subscribing to the channel, please, that would be a huge help. But now on to Money. I guess Money, we can add them to the long list of new wave of British heavy metal era bands who had the talent but didn't get the breaks, unfortunately. First Investment, as I've mentioned, was their sole album. It came and went. It barely made a mark anywhere, though apparently it did quite well in Japan. And First Investment shows Money were a little bit different from the normal Nawabum stuff. They had the layered harmonies, a bit of a proggy edge and a quirky style, which reminds me somewhat of long-lost Canadian pomp rockers Zon. Now, there's a band to check out if you haven't already. Zon, phenomenal. If you can get Astral Projector, it's outstanding. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about here, is it? We're talking about Money. But anyway, Money do remind me of Zon. And also the Queen influences on First Investment are somewhat obvious. And perhaps Money were a bit too different to make a mark and push on to emerge from the new wave of British heavy metal pack. And probably what didn't help was apparently they were lined up to support Rush on their 1979 European tour. But so the story goes, the record label wouldn't stump up the buy-in. And if I remember rightly, I saw Rush on that tour. And was it Quartz? Anyway, tell me if I'm wrong. I think it might have been Quartz that bagged it instead, but tell me if I'm wrong. Anyway, that probably didn't help, did it? Big high-profile support slot lost. But anyway, never mind that. What about the music? Excellent stuff, even though it is that little bit different. Mariana, glorious opening track, excellent slashing riff. Chunky, develops into a fine heavy rocker, and there's some nifty lead breaks in there as well. Leo the Jesters are pretty similar, and that gives a hint to that quirkiness, progginess that I've mentioned as well, but it still has a strong edge and a cut to it as well. Aren't We All Searching rocks along nicely too, and this is where the Queen stuff comes to the fore a little bit. Geneva's really infectious, especially the chorus. We've got a couple of what I'd call short interludes, which do seem a little bit out of place. I mean, there's an a cappella break, and I'm not really sure what all that's about. Though we do get back into the quirky rockiness, and with finely arranged stuff like Statement and Demands, Remembering, and Goddess. It's all really good stuff, but just that little bit different. You know, the band undeniably had the talent. And back then, they were signed to Gull Records, who, of course, who else were on Gull Records at that time? There we are. I've given you a second to guess. If you can't, of course, it was Judas Priest. And even though Money did attract some critical acclaim, and it wouldn't have been unreasonable to expect big things for them, given the talent that they got, but it didn't work out. Whether that was down to losing that Rush support slot, who knows, but it can't have helped them. And the band faded away into nothing a few years later. But First Investment remains a fine album. It sounds strong and fresh today, some 4 decades later. And I guess we can file it under the lost new wave of British heavy metal classic territory. And something to get your ears around it if you haven't already. Rock Candy reissued it recently, as they do a lot of stuff from the old days, and it's a first class listen. I would suggest that you check it out if you haven't already. If you'd like to do that, as ever, there's a link in the description underneath the video to First Investment on Amazon, and there's also a link back to the blog post as well if you'd like to read that. So please do if you'd like to, and until next time, as always, thanks for watching and take care.